Okay, so we meet again. Firstly, I would like to apologize for getting kicked out last week. Last week, for those who were there, we managed to conduct the lesson. Then when we were in the question and answer segment, I lost network, and I just found myself out of the meeting. I tried to reconnect. I reconnected for a few seconds, then I was booted out again. I would like to apologize for that. So before we can proceed, I just want to ask, is there anyone who has a question left over from last week? Is there any question that we left unattended last week before we start today's lesson, which is now the business environment? Last week, it was just introduction. We were talking about the 4 factors that you need in order to have a viable business. So today, we want to look at the business environment. What environment surrounds businesses as we conduct these organizations or these companies? Anyone with a question about last week before we continue this week? Okay, if you do remember a question that you didn't manage to ask last week, you can always type for everyone. I will be able to see it, or you can unmute, and then we can see if we can help each other there. So I'll continue with this week's lesson. Like I said, today we want to look at the business environment. As we learn how to run businesses, we will find ourselves running them in certain environments. Some factors of the environments, we have control over them. Some factors, we do not have control over them. So you want to know what to expect, and you want to know how you can set up strategies that will make you remain competitive even within those business environments. We have just come from a hard time for businesses, which was the COVID era. I know we cannot say COVID is over as yet, but there was a time from mid 2020 up to around mid 2021 when things were really, really bad for businesses because of COVID. And mind you, COVID was not a situation that you would expect in a business. When you are opening a business, you don't really sit down to say, what if there is a pandemic and everyone is ill? You know, it's not something that comes to your mind, but it did affect businesses at a very high scale. And we had some businesses which failed to recover up to today. Some of them closed, some laid off employees. Even us as a society, we are still reeling from what happened with COVID. So you need to know the environment. You need to know the things that can affect your business as you start running your business, or as you are in the midst of running your business. So firstly here, I just started by saying general statements about the business environment. I said a business environment can either be internal or it can be external. When it's internal, we are talking of those factors which are inside your organization. And then when we talk of external environment, we are talking of the outside forces or factors that can have an impact on your organization or on how your organization can achieve its objectives. So as you are having your business, remember your main point is to have profitability and also to have sustainability. Profitability, I think I did explain last week, the excess money that you are left with that builds towards your wealth. And then sustainability is the ability to remain in business, to remain sustainable, to remain running for the long-term future. You don't want to have a business that's going to that you can tell that in a year's time it will be over. It will maybe become broke, or it will no longer be sustainable. So as you are running your business, you are aiming to achieve sustainability and you are aiming to achieve profitability. So as you look into these environments, you are worried about those factors that affect how you are able to achieve your objectives, how you are able to remain profitable, or how you are able to remain sustainable as a business. So that's just the general statement about the business environment. Now, the nature of the business environment everywhere, including here in South Africa, we say that the business environment is, we describe it by the acronym VUCA. Now, this VUCA is just 4 words that we took the first letter of. And the first word stands for volatile, the second word for uncertainty, the third word for complicated, and the fourth word for ambiguity. So the acronym VUCA is just so that you can be able to remember better. So when you are describing the business, the nature of the business environment, you say that it is described as being VUCA. So when you take the volatility, you take the uncertainty, you take the complexity and the ambiguity, you are now describing how difficult the conditions are that you are supposed to run your business in. So I'll just explain to you the meaning of these words. Let me just change the order of these slides here, because before we get to the picture, I want us to look at the words themselves. So these are the definitions of the 4 words that make up a VUCA environment. We say that the nature of the business environment is volatile. What do we mean when we say volatile? You know, when you say someone has got a volatile temper, it means they can just erupt anytime. You don't know. Even when you talk to that person, you don't know when they are just going to get very angry, or how they are going to react. You know, this is a volatile, the meaning of the word volatile. It's something that can change swiftly. It can change within a second. The next thing, it's changed. So meaning it's very unpredictable. And usually when we say something is volatile, we don't mean that it will change for the better. Usually we are meaning something that will change for the worse. So this is the environment that we have our businesses in. It's an environment that can change at any time. Right now, you can imagine where the earthquakes. Imagine in just a few seconds, everything changed. The buildings collapsed. There's so many people who died. Just imagine the environment like that for someone who is running a business. So that's what we mean when we say the environment is volatile. We also say it's uncertain. When we say something is uncertain, it means you have no way of knowing with absolute you cannot know for sure what tomorrow will bring. It's uncertain. You don't know. It might go this way, it might go the other way. And then complexity. Now, when we talk of complexity, we are talking of a situation that has factors of being complicated, meaning there are many interconnections. It's an intricate situation. This leads to that, and that leads to this. There are so many parts, so many elements. So it's just complicated. You have no way of knowing, if I do this, how is it going to affect that, and what will it lead to? So this is another element of the VUCA environment. Then lastly, we say that the environment, the business environment, is ambiguous. When you say something is ambiguous, it means you cannot have a one true meaning for it. So it's the quality, the explanation that I have there, the definition that I have there says it's the quality of being open to more than one interpretation. So one might look at it and come up with a certain conclusion, and another person looks at it and comes up with another conclusion. So this is the environment. Now, as we are talking of this environment, already you can see these four factors here, there are challenges. All of them, they are negative, they are challenges, they make life difficult for a business owner. How can you then come up with strategies to overcome the VUCA environment? Now, this is the simplest thing here. A VUCA environment, you overcome it by the acronym VUCA again. So the solution to a VUCA environment is also called VUCA. And now the strategies, they now stand for other words. So when you want to set up a strategy to remain sustainable in a VUCA environment, the one that has challenges, you bring into play VUCA response. So now VUCA, the one that was standing, the V that was standing for volatile, it's now standing for vision. As you run your organization, you must have a vision. That way, you are able to remain in track. Remember, a vision is something that you see for your business for the future. It's a futuristic view that you have of your business. You are saying, okay, I have opened my business today. I am selling, I'm selling scones at the corner where people pass by as they are going to work. But your vision is that even though the environment is volatile, your vision is that in the next, in the future, you are going to have a full-blown bakery that will be supplying supermarkets, supplying even other bakeries with baked goods. So you have a vision, you have something that will guide you through the volatile environment. The environment is volatile, it can erupt anytime. Remember, we said volatile means anytime it can erupt, but you have to set a path for yourself to say, my business is moving in this direction. So once you have a vision, you can remain sustainable. Secondly, you need to have understanding of the environment. You need to be able to know the things that can happen within your environment. You need to understand, to say that here where I'm operating my business, if this happens, it usually leads to this, and it means what it can mean for the customers is this. So you have a clear understanding of your environment. What you are saying is that, let's say you have a business in a certain area that has issues with the municipality. That is something that is external from you. You don't work for the municipality, you don't do anything. But you know, when people protest against the municipality, when there are protests, you know, business premises, they get damaged, you know. So as you are running your business in that environment, already you know, you need insurance for this. You need to have this type of security for your organization. In that environment which is uncertain, in that environment which is volatile, once you have understanding of the environment that you are operating in, you can remain sustainable regardless. And then C, which was on the challenges for VUCA, it was complexity. Now it's clarity. Clarity means to have focus, means to have a clear picture of everything. You run your business in such a way that you take things in a simple way, but not being stupid. Just simplicity, meaning you are able to accept the things that you cannot change. You find strategies to overcome them. And when you have clarity, you focus all your energy on remaining sustainable. This is very simple. You just accept your environment as it is, and then you move forward. So that is the third letter there. And then lastly, on the challenges, we had ambiguity. Now we have analysis. So you are now saying you thoroughly analyze your organization, your internal processes, you analyze your structures, you analyze anything that has to do with your organization. You look at the way you make decisions, you look at your business ethics, you look at every aspect of your business. It's called analysis. You are analyzing everything that has to do with your business. And in that way, you remain sustainable, you remain profitable, even in a VUCA environment. So in general, this is the environment that we operate in. And then we have this illustration there. I'm sure even in your study guide it's there, which shows VUCA. On the left-hand side, we have the challenges, we have the VUCA environment, the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity and ambiguity. And then on the right-hand side, it's now solutions to the challenges. You have vision, you have understanding, you have clarity, you have agility. Agility is the same as the analysis, where you are able as an organization to be flexible. You are able as an organization to move in such a way that you can conquer all these challenges. So before we move on from the VUCA environment, because this is something that you are definitely going to meet somewhere in your exams, in your assignments maybe, or in general, even when you're answering other questions, you might find that the business environment will always come in here and there. So this is something that you really need to understand before we move on. Are there any questions on the VUCA environment before we go on to the macro and micro environment? Any questions? Anyone? If you type something, I'll be able to see it. Okay, so can I go on? Does this mean we are good to go up to where we are here now? Okay, so the next thing I want us to look at is the systems approach to business. It's going to come in handy when we talk of the macro and the micro environment. That's why I've just slotted it in there after the VUCA environment and before the macro and micro environment. So it's something that's going to come in handy as you go forward. And this is an approach that you need to know even as you run a business, as you manage a business. There is what we call the systems approach. Now, the systems approach, this is a management approach. As a manager, you have your strategies that you use as you are running your business, as you are conducting business. Now, we have what we call the systems approach. Now, the systems approach looks at the organization as a set of subsets. It says that the business has got what we call subsets, and all of them, when you bring them together, they combine to make a whole, to make the whole organization. So it's based on the principle that everything within the business is interrelated and also it's interdependent. When you have an organization, you have a different subsystem. You have the management system, you have the leadership system, you have the way in which you conduct your processes, you have the organizational structure. All those things come together to make what we call a business. So this is a very simple approach to look at an organization, to say an organization is made up of subsystems which, when brought together, they form a whole organization. So, of course, there are some assumptions with that approach there. The first one is that, you know, a business is, it assumes that, the systems approach assumes that the complexity of an organization is very simple, it's easy to understand, as long as you look at it from subset. Then it also assumes that each component plays a role in the system, but at the same time, while understanding the activity of the whole system. So whatever subset is within an organization, it will be playing its role towards the whole of the organization. But at the same time, it has got its own interdependence. For example, let's say it's the organizational structure. The organizational structure, when you are setting it up, you are looking at other objectives that you want to meet with the structure. But as you are setting up that structure, as much as you are looking at the objectives for setting up the structure, you are also aware that whatever decision you make, the structure will have an impact on the whole organization, or on the way the whole organization will run. So as much as it is interdependent, it is also dependent on the rest of the structure. Now, besides the assumptions, we also need to look at the components that make up a systems theory. Now, this systems approach, it runs as the systems theory. There are two basic components. The first one are the elements. Now, the elements, we are simply saying anything that you can measure, you can link together. It can be objects, it can be events, it can be patterns, it can be structure. So what we are simply saying there is that anything that has to do with the organization, you can be able to link it if you are having a systems approach. And then the systems theory is also made up of processes where whatever you do, you are changing the form of a certain element from one to another. That will make more sense when we go further, when we go on to the methods of transformation. So for now, it might sound not so clear, the processes, but just hang on, we'll get to where it will be explained. So within a systems theory, there is transformation that takes place. Transformation is when you change one element from one form to another. And the transformation process is, if you are putting it in a simple way, it's according to that diagram there. So you have what you call input. When whatever you put into something, it can be your effort, it can be your raw materials, it can be your labor, anything, all the resources that you put in, we call them input. Then they go through the transformation stage. When you are now processing that those inputs, you are putting them through a transformation process. And what you come out with is what we call output, which is the goods and services. So I'll give you a simple example there. Your input, let's say you take your flour, you take your sugar, you take some milk, whatever other ingredients, you put them through the transformation process where you mix them and you put them into an oven and you put them at high heat. Then you come out with the output, which is bread or buns or whatever. So that is in the simplest form, a transformation process. You have taken some inputs, you put them through a transformation stage and you came out with outputs. But like I said, this is the simplest form of transformation. You do have transformation where you come out with services at the end. You do have transformation which is more complicated than just mixing some ingredients and putting them in an oven. So, but once you grasp that transformation process in its simplicity, you will be able to apply it even in more complicated situations. So this, I started off with the simplified version. Let's look at the a bit complicated situation now. I'm sure you can see that diagram there. Now, we have more information there. The inputs, you now have a list of inputs. It can be capital, materials, equipment, facilities, labor, suppliers, knowledge, time. So you see, all those can be inputs. How can we have facilities as inputs? How can we have knowledge as input? But we do have those as inputs. I'll give you an example. If you have a nice place with a lot of greenery, some water there, maybe there is a lake nearby, and you are maintaining those facilities, you have a building there, a nice one, you can turn that into a venue for weddings or for parties or whatever. So that is the input that you have, the facilities that you have. What about knowledge? We do have some people who give us information in exchange for money. We have maybe, let's say, insurance people. They don't have equipment or material that they will come to your place with, but the knowledge that they have about the laws and whatnot, they can give you, they can cover you for insurance somewhere. Or the law, you can have a lawyer. A lawyer in the office, what they have is the knowledge that is in their head. You will not get there and you find a machine that you can use to get the knowledge. So you need an actual person with the knowledge that they have. You have doctors. Doctors, they offer a service which is knowledge-based. They know if someone comes and they have these symptoms and I give them this medication, they will get better. You know, all those, we classify them as inputs. So inputs does not necessarily mean a physical item that you can touch with your hands. It can actually be something that is intangible. Now, remember from that simplified version, we had input, we had transformation, and then we had output. But look at it now on the transformation, how a bit complicated it now is. We now have, as you are conducting your transformation, it's going through an environment. Look at the environment there. There are now customers. There is now regulation, the laws. There is now suppliers. There is now an economy, competitors, technology. All those things you now need to take note of as you are going through the transformation process. And then you put all that information, you put it through the transformation system, where you are either altering, transporting, storage, or inspection. All those are methods of transformation before you get to the outputs. Now, when you get to the outputs, you can see there's an arrow coming from the outputs. Okay? The outputs, we have services, we have goods, we have facilitation. I can see an arrow going to the bottom there from the outputs, where it goes to monitoring and control. So as you get the outputs, it can go back to the transformation stage where you monitor and you control. Then it goes through the transformation again and comes back. Or before it gets to the outputs, you take the information or the data that you have at the transformation stage, you monitor and control it, and it goes back to transformation. So this can be maybe something that is to do with information technology, which you can put back and then transform it. And then the environment, you can see the environment, it has an arrow going into the transformation there. So as you have your customers, your regulations, your suppliers, your economy, all that can go back to the transformation system and then comes out as outputs. So this is now a more complicated transformation process, but basically do not be intimidated. It is simply input, transformation, and output. This is now just showing you all the different elements that you might find yourself having in the transformation process and how it can go backwards and forth. If you look there at the transformation system, you have the data going to monitoring and control and then coming back as action, you see that. And then it goes out as outputs. So this was the systems theory that I wanted us to look at before we go into the macro micro environment. Before I proceed, do you feel like there's anything that you didn't understand that you might want clarification on the systems approach? So as we do this, I'm just giving you the information for now. I'll give you these slides so that you can go through them. But remember, we are going to have time to answer questions. We'll get those past examination papers and we'll answer them together. So we are going to apply this knowledge before we get to the exams. And then, of course, we are going to have exam preparation. We are going to have the assignment class, because the assignment already we have it. So we'll have a class. I'm not sure. I'll check the calendar when we are having the assignment class. But we will have a class where we go through the assignments that you have. So before you submit, just wait for us to have that assignment class. Can I proceed to the methods of transformation? Remember, I did say hold that thought when we were talking about the components of a systems theory. I said hold that thought. We are going to find ways of transformation. Anything, anyone? Before I go on. Okay, if you do not ask, I assume that you understood. So let's look at the modes of transformation. There are different modes of transformation. So like I said, transformation is not always about getting some tangible goods and putting them through a certain process and coming out with output. There are different modes of transformation. So you can have transformation being a change in physical characteristics of materials or customers. Remember, when we talk of transformation, we are talking of any form of business that is there. So when I just see the word physical characteristics, I'm thinking of, they are saying a change in physical characteristics of materials or customers. How can you transform a customer? Maybe, you know, those people who have hairdressing, makeup businesses, they do change some physical characteristics. Change in location. These are people who are running transportation businesses. So you can offer your services to change the location of some materials. You transport something from one area to the other. That is a transformation. It's a mode of transformation. Then information for customers, where you process information. That's also a mode of transformation. We do have people that work just by information. Change in ownership of materials or information. Again, we have some people who sell materials, who sell information, and they run that as a business. You have people, some maybe who sell even properties. That's a mode of transformation also. Storage or accommodation. Yes, you can run a business by having a storage place or accommodating some materials, having warehouses, and so on. Changing the purpose or form of information. Like I said, these are the information technology people there. We might not exactly know what they do, but we do go to them for processing of information. Then change in the physiological or psychological state of customers. We have psychologists, we have psychiatrists. They do change the state of their patients. So all these are forms of transformation. So when we talk of transformation, do not limit yourself to think of products that are being made. There are so many forms of transformation that can happen. We have seen information there, we have seen ownership being transformation, we have seen storage of goods being transformation, we have seen the change in the psychological state of someone being a transformation. So everyone who is running a business is included there somehow, be it a motor mechanic, be it a doctor, be it a psychologist, be it a lawyer, any form of business, or a supermarket, a real estate agent. Those are all forms of transformation. You can find one or two modes of transformation that can describe any business that we have in our economy. Next, I want us now to look at the environment in more detail. Remember, we spoke of the VUCA environment. We were generalizing everything. Now we want to look at the three forms of environment. We have the macro environment, we have the market environment, and we have the internal environment. So when we look at the macro environment, we are looking at those factors that are outside the organization, but they affect or they influence the organization. Just ignore that word there, we'll get to it, the pastel. And then we have a market environment. A market environment, this is immediately outside a business, but it affects the business. We are talking of suppliers, we are talking of customers, competitors. They are outside the business, but they are right there, right nearby. The macro environment, we are talking of something that is away from the organization. We are talking of the political situation or the economic situation. Then we have the micro environment or the internal environment. This is what we have inside the organization. So these are the three forms of organization. Now, when you are looking at these, you need, you do have some strategies that we use to analyze these environments. We do have some strategies. We have some scanning tools that we use. So we are going to look at three main environmental scanning tools. What you use to scan the environment, to analyze the environment. If you want to analyze the macro environment, which is the outside environment, you use what we call the Pastel Analysis. If you want to scan inside the organization, we use what we call the SWOT Analysis. If you want to scan how competitive you are, you use what we call Michael Porter's 5 forces. So we'll just go through those quickly. I'm going to come back to them in a future lesson where we go into more detail. You cannot afford not to know these environmental scanning tools. Now, sometimes you get a question, you'll be given a scenario, and you have to identify which scanning tool you use. You might be given a scenario to say you have a business and there's this competitor who has come and this. How can you scan the environment to see how competitive you are against that? So you need to know, if I'm scanning the competition, I need to use the 5 forces. If I'm scanning the macro environment, I need to use Pastel. If I'm scanning the internal environment, I need to use the SWOT analysis. So these are the 3 main scanning tools. Let's just go into more detail about them. Okay. Now, when you are scanning your environment using the Pastel analysis, we call this the Pastel analysis. It's an acronym. Pastel stands for political, economical, sorry, this is economic, not economical. There is a difference there. Economic, sociological, or we normally just call it the social, technological, environmental, and legal. So you are scanning your environment, you look at the political factors. Remember, these are the macro environment. We are looking at the outside forces. So if you are running a business or you want to open a business, you look at the political situation. Does the political situation allow you to have such a business within that environment? What's the political situation like? So you are looking at, maybe you want to open a branch in another country. You need to know, do they have political stability, or there is a war there? Imagine, you can't just go and open a business in a war zone. You are likely not to succeed, but you need to know the political situation. You also need to know the economic situation of that place. Now, if it is a country, you need to know how valuable is their currency, how is their economy, how much of their population lives in poverty. You know, all those things, they impact, because if it's let's say you want to be selling luxury goods, you cannot go to a poverty-stricken country to sell luxury watches that cost $1 million. So you need to know the economy of the country that you are going to open your business in, or the place. You know, in such a place, in this city, this is the city where the most affluent people live in, or this is the suburb where the people who are there are mainly millionaires and so on. So as you are scanning the environment, that knowledge in itself will tell you how your business will be there. You know, okay, you want to be selling cheap phones. You can't go to that place and sell cheap phones. No one will buy, because the people there, they all have iPhones, they all have expensive phones. What about the social environment in that place? What is it made up of? Is it a place, let's say the Middle East, you want to go and sell women's clothing, but the social environment will tell you that if you go there to sell ladies' jeans, no one will buy, because their social setup is such that the women, they do not wear such attire. So you are scanning the environment, you are doing your research before you start your business. Then the technological, you look at how advanced are they in terms of technology. Imagine you go to China, the way they are technologically advanced, and you want to be selling to them third generation computers, when already their technological advancement is such that they are now using 8th generation. So if you go there with your 3rd generation computers, you are simply setting yourself up for failure, because they are more technologically advanced. But find a place where their technology will view your 3rd generation computers as something that is advanced. Then you can make business. Look also at the environment. We cannot ignore the environment. If it is a place that is always very hot, I'm talking about the weather there. If the weather is always hot, you can't go there selling huge coats, which are used maybe in countries that have sub-zero temperatures. You can't go there with those. If it is a country that is prone to earthquakes, mudslides, and so on, there are some goods that you cannot go there and sell. So you need to also scan the environmental factors. And then the legal factors. What is it that is legal within that country? You can't go and sell goods that are considered illegal in that country. You will not succeed. So you need to know, as you want to go and open your business, what is the legal situation in that country? So you have scanned your macro environment. You have scanned. We have said you want to open a business. You have looked at all these factors, and you decide, is it worth going there with your business there? Then sometimes you are scanning your internal environment. Again, we are using an acronym. We call it SWOT analysis. All these analysis. This is SWOT analysis. This is Pastel analysis. Okay. So SWOT now, the S stands for strengths, W for weaknesses, O for opportunities, and T for threats. So if you are conducting a SWOT analysis, you are simply looking at we call it the macro environment, but it's actually a combination of both. So you are analyzing yourself as a business to say, how sustainable are you within that environment? So let's say you already have a running business and you conduct a SWOT analysis just to check, is it worth going forward, or you should just close down this business? So you look at the strengths. What are the strengths that you have as a business? Let's say you have a supermarket somewhere, and you find that the strengths that you have is that you always sell fresh products as compared to the other supermarkets within that environment. So that is a strength. You look at your weaknesses. What are the weaknesses that your business has? Maybe there are always long queues there. What can you do? Maybe you have fewer tellers and you always have long queues, or the location where you are, people need to drive there, it's out of town. It's a weakness. So A weakness can be anything that is going against your business. Then remember I said SWOT analysis, even though we consider it a micro environment, it also has an element of external, in the sense that you look at the opportunities. Opportunities are outside the business. So if you have that supermarket, what opportunities are there? Is there another place where you can open a branch? Is there another department that you can open within your supermarket? Maybe there is a department that you feel if you open, if you had maybe groceries section and you had electricals, maybe you also need to have a bit of clothing within your supermarket. So these are opportunities that you are scanning, that you are looking at. And then the threats. You have heard that Checkers is going to open just a kilometer away from you. That's a threat. You know, Checkers is a big supermarket that can really threaten you. So you are scanning the environment to check your strength as an organization. Then lastly, we have what we call the 5 forces. Now, this one was formulated by Michael Porter. It's used to analyze how competitive you are. So if you have a supermarket and there's ShopRite, there's Pick n Pay, there's YouSave, there are other supermarkets around you, you now want to analyze how competitive you are. You use what we call Michael Porter's 5 forces. Now, these 5 forces, the first one is you look at the barriers to new entrants. You are saying, okay, I'm already competing against Pick n Pay and ShopRite, which are next to me. But how easy is it for someone else to bring another supermarket into this environment? Because maybe you are figuring that since you already have Pick n Pay on your right-hand side and ShopRite on your left-hand side, you've been dealing with them for the past 10 years and you are surviving. But now you are worried, how easy is it for another supermarket to open nearby? So you look at what are the laws that that are considered when someone wants to open a supermarket in that area. So you are just analyzing to see, this is very easy. Any people can come and open another business, another supermarket here, and then instead of 3 of us, will now be 4 or 5 of us. Then you also look at the threats of substitute products. If you are producing a certain product, you need to know if people cannot find your product, what is it that they use to substitute? What is it that they use? And you analyze how easy is it for them to substitute your product. So if people cannot get bread in the morning and you are baking bread, what is it that they'll use to eat where they were going to have your bread? If you find that it's very easy for them to substitute, then you are in trouble. It means you have to up your game. If you find that it is very difficult for them to substitute your product, then you can rest easy. You don't abuse your customers, but you know it's not easy for them to walk away from you. Then you look at the bargaining power of the suppliers. Now, if you are baking bread, you are simply analyzing how much bargaining power do your suppliers have? Those who supply you with flour, can they just raise their price and affect your business, or they have less power? Are there many of them? How many suppliers are there? Can you just move from one supplier to the other? You are analyzing the power of the suppliers, because it does impact on your business. Remember, if you have one supplier and you don't, there is no other company that can supply you with those goods. That means if that supplier closes down or they tell you they can't supply you for a week, It means for a week, you can't run your business. Then you look at the competition around you. How much of a threat is that Pick n Pay on your right and that ShopRite on your left? How much of your customers are they really taking? So you just analyze to see the competition around you. And then lastly, you look at the buyers. How easy is it for your buyers to move from your company to another company, or from your product to another product? And how much, if you increase your price, how much can the buyers negotiate for a lesser price? Are you the only one supplying that, such that you can charge whatever you want? Or if you increase your price, the customers can just change overnight and go to another product. So these are the factors that you look at when you are using this scanning tool. I think we have covered a lot of information. I'll stop here for today. The other slides, which are the Industrial Revolution and the stakeholders, will look at them next week. I feel like we have covered a lot today. It can become overwhelming if I move to something else. Do you have any questions on the scanning tools, on the environment, VUCA, anything, anyone? Any questions, anyone? Before we close, if I were to give you a scenario, would you be able to identify which scanning tool you use? Anyone with a contribution? Okay, Colin says he thinks might be able to apply which scanning tool to use. Okay, so does Lindiwe. Any questions, anyone? Any contributions, anything you'd like to add before we close?
Just a quick question.
Okay.
Going forward, after we've made payments and whatnot, are we going to have those classes on the same days, same time, or the timetable is going to change?
I think we'll maintain the same day, unless if there is a challenge, because you might have another class maybe clashing and we might have to change, but ordinarily, from past experiences, usually if I'm given a day, we maintain that day. But I cannot say 100%. You will have to hear from James if we are going to maintain the same day. But I should think so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but really it's up to you. You can talk to James, you tell him, look, we have a challenge with this time and this or this day, then we can always change. You feel that there is a need to change. I'm open to that. Okay, any other questions? Next week, I want us to move to something else before we do the assignment class. I'm not sure whether we'll be doing the assignment class next week or that other week. But definitely the assignment class, I think it will be done after payments. Okay, if there are no questions, I think we can round off here. Like I said at the beginning, for those who joined us or who joined us late, I'm very sorry about what happened last week. I realized that you remained in the class for about 30 minutes after I had been chucked out by my network. But we had finished, we were now in the questions segment. So I think we did manage to cover what we wanted to cover for the introduction. Today, we have also managed to finish the business environment. Next week, I'll move on to something else before we then start the revisions and the past examination papers and the exam preparation and so on. So if there are no other questions, can we call it a night? Should I say good night, everyone? We'll meet next
Good
week.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thank
I'll send
you.
the slides. I'll send you the slides for this lesson through James. Goodbye.